Hey, Naresh, it's great to have you. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Dan. Looking forward to the conversation.
Looking forward to it as well. I was looking at your extensive knowledge on marketing and all of the resources you've provided for authors like us, and I'm excited to dig in and see what you can do to help those of us that are in the beginning stages of authoring ramp it up. At least that's the hope. Before we get started, though, I love to ask, how long have you been in the business, publishing and writing?
I have been officially on paper in the business since 2013. That's when I published the first book. So almost, actually, yeah, I can't even believe it. 9 years.
Wow. That's awesome. So what made you decide to get into it? Was this just like a passion of yours from when you were younger, or is it something like what's the story behind you getting into this business?
Yeah, I love that question because that's the origin question. I always had a passion for writing and going all the way back to, I would say, high school, like early high school. I was just really interested in writing and in sharing information with the world. And so back then, obviously, there was no self-publishing or anything like that. It was pretty difficult to become a writer. So I went to journalism school. That's one of my degrees. I have a lot of different degrees. That's one of them, broadcast and digital journalism. Went to journalism school. And what did I do there? I wrote a lot. I wrote for the school newspaper. I wrote in my classes. I got a great experience writing for TV, for radio, print, magazine, newspapers, in front of the camera, behind the camera, you name it. And then I ended up, after going to graduate school, getting some more experience, I ended up working at a financial publishing company. So a publisher, that's where I worked, where I got to learn more about the publishing industry, not necessarily writing, but the publishing industry. And through my experiences there, attending a few conferences, I discovered self-publishing, read a few books on self-publishing, and published my first book in 2013, and then created a division of my company, Krish Media Marketing, called Krish Publishing, where we publish other authors' works as well. So that's a snapshot of how I ended up in publishing. I've now written 5 books, mostly related to business and finance, or not, sorry, not finance, but mostly related to like business and technology. And I have more on the way, and we've published many other authors' books as well through Krish Publishing.
That's awesome. I mean, it's probably really fulfilling to be able to create a publishing house like that, particularly for like-minded books on business and marketing and whatever else you have in the catalog. I noticed. So, was your first book, The 50 Shades of Marketing? Is that the first book you've published, or was that later down the line?
That was my second book. My
Second
first
book.
book, yes, my first book was Podcastnomics, which is all about podcasting. That's my number one best-selling book. Out of all the books I've come out with, that's done the best because it came out during the time when podcasting was about to reach an inflection point. Podcasting did not reach mainstream when that book was published in October 2014. So it wasn't until about 2015 that podcasting started going mainstream. So that book did really, really well, and it's helped a lot of people, thousands of people, either listen to more podcasts or start their own podcast.
I actually never heard of the book, but now that I see it, I'm really interested in reading it, mainly because obviously I'm running this podcast as well. I'm always looking for resources to kind of ramp up the effectiveness of podcasting and being guests on podcasts. It's a really great way to get out there, whether you're selling books or, whether you're just offering advice or trying to share your experience with the world. I really loved the podcasts that I found around publishing primarily, but podcasts in general. And you run your own podcast as well, from what I understand, correct? What's the name of that
Yes.
podcast?
So that podcast is called The Work From Home Show. You can find it at workfromhomeshow.com. It's all about working from home. I've been working from home for close to 10 years now, really longer, close to 10 years full time. Was doing it on a part time basis, going all the way back to college. But I also want to say Podcastnomics, that book is 8 years old. So it's not the most up to date,
Sure.
but just keep that in mind when you read it. And for our listeners, I'd love to offer a free copy of that book to you and our listeners. So you can just visit my website, nareshvissa.com, and contact me through there. And I'll send you a free copy of the book, Podcastnomics.
That's awesome. We'll make sure that's in the show notes for people listening. Um, but yeah, I may take you up on that. I'm always looking for good books to read to help me with whatever I can.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's all sorts of resources that you've provided, and I'd love to kind of hear your take on marketing, because the book 50 Shades of Marketing, it looks like it's kind of focused on business. You say it's labeled "Whip Your Business into Shape and Dominate Your Competition." So, are there specific sections of that are focused on, authors in general, or is it mainly, hey, this is small business advice for any business, whatever it is you're selling and trying to ramp up? How does the focus look in that book?
It's meant for marketers, it's meant for business owners, it's meant for entrepreneurs, it's meant for entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are people who work within a company or corporation, but
Hmm.
maybe they're like the marketing manager within that corporation. It's meant for all those different types of people. So 50 Shades of Marketing, it really goes into the nitty gritty of the basics all the way to the the more advanced, complex, running social media ads or campaigns, etc. So it's very in depth. It's over 200 pages long. So it's not like a short ebook or anything like that. It's quite extensive, and it took me about a year of every day just writing, a year of just dedication. So the book is really meant for anyone who's in the business world. You can even be in the nonprofit world. Anyone who has anything to do with business, you're going to want to pick up this book. And I'll also offer this book free of charge to your listeners as well. They just email me.
All sorts of goodies in this podcast. Hopefully people listening are interested in grabbing these. So was the 50 Shades of Marketing kind of what led you to ultimately write From Nobody to Best-Selling Author? Did you determine, like, hey, I have my own experience with writing and publishing and becoming a best-selling author, let's kind of package that up and elements of the 50 Shades of Marketing and put it into an author specific marketing book?
Absolutely. So, like I said, 50 Shades of Marketing was my second book. I came out with a third book that was a chapter from 50 Shades of Marketing, and I expanded on that chapter. And then I came out with a fourth book on somewhat political marketing, and then From Nobody to Best-Selling Author was my fifth book, and that was taken from a chapter in 50 Shades of Marketing. That chapter is called How to Publish a Book. And what I did was I expanded on that chapter and turned it into From Nobody to Best-Selling Author. And From Nobody to Best-Selling Author has done quite well. It's sold well. It's helped hundreds of people write their own books, and many folks have even come to me in my company, Krish Publishing, saying, "Hey, can you publish my book?" So that's the power of books.
I mean, there's so many great resources nowadays for publishing that you said didn't exist, say 9, 10 years ago. There's some self-published authors that have been doing it for that long. And so, I didn't get into it until about 2020, so relatively new to the game, but there
New,
were a
yeah.
lot of these technologies that existed for self-publishing. But regardless, some of the principles are going to remain the same across the years. There's just different helps and different advice based on the way of the world and technology that we have access to. But one of the things that I know a lot of people struggle with is knowing where to begin. And so, based on what you've talked about in all your books and just all marketing principles in general, when somebody writes a book and they have content that they want to sell, how do they know where to begin?
So the first thing is, if they have content, is the content up here or is it actually on paper?
Sure.
Because I would say 60 to 70% of the ball game is actually translating that digital content up here or that mental content and putting it on paper.
Sure.
So that's the first step. You have to write the book. The book isn't going to write itself. You don't know how many people I come across who are like, oh, I have this book idea. I should write a book about my life story. And I'm like, well, do it. Like,
Hmm.
what's holding you back? So once you get that out of the way, the rest of the stuff is easy. The editing, the publishing, the graphics design, front cover, back cover, spine, all that is easy. The audiobook production, the Kindle, the paperback, the hardback, that's the easy stuff. Actually sitting down and writing something good that flows well, that makes sense, that's the hard part. And so that's what I'm struggling with now because I'm working on my next few books. I started writing two different books and actually three different books. And I'm struggling because unlike when I came out with all those other books, now I have two kids and they're very young, obviously. So it's like, okay, I got kid duties, I got my work duties, I got husband duties, I've got community duties. So that's why my time is extremely valuable because if I get any free time, it's like, okay, I need to write. I need to knock out that next book.
Well, and I think that you've kind of captured in there partially why this is the casual author by nature of my life. I have five, almost six kids, um,
Oh, wow.
and a full-time job, and I live on a homestead where we're breeding goats and grow our own meat chickens. We've got a lot going on. And so in spite of that, it really comes down to identifying and making efficient all of the tasks that need to get done so that you're doing the right things. And when it comes to marketing, it's interesting that you said the hardest part is writing the book. For me, it's actually opposite. I could write books, but I write fiction. So that's one difference, right? You're writing nonfiction. With
It's
fiction,
still hard.
I've
It's still
published.
hard. They're both hard.
I think it depends on the person really, because
Yeah,
some people say, getting the content out is easy, but then the later parts are difficult and vice versa. It just kind of depends on the person. But regardless, it comes down to identifying and being efficient, which I'm sure your book sums that up. So hey, these are the things you need to focus on when you're marketing and trying to hit that bestseller list. But
well,
that
I'll just
being
share one hack.
sure.
Yeah, so one hack I have that's helped me a lot is my phone. So
Okay, sure.
it's hard to just write sitting in front of your computer.
Yeah.
So I do a lot of writing on my phone. When I get inspiration, so to speak, when I get inspiration, I just start writing in my notes app on my iPhone. And I've got so much content on my notes in my phone, which is obviously backed up by the iCloud. So
Hmm.
much content to the point that I've written an entire book on my phone.
That's awesome. That's very impressive. I have done some phone writing, although I haven't delved into it as much as I probably should. So, do you find that having your phone accessible is important for you? Do you capture those moments kind of as you're going around day to day, or do you still have pre planned moments where you're capturing those thoughts on your phone rather than a computer?
I'm capturing thoughts on my phone. So, for example, I'm writing one book. It's a nonfiction book, and it's basically a bunch of thoughts that I've compiled over a 3 year period.
Okay, sure.
And I'm going to turn all those thoughts into a book, into a shorter book. But I've even 50 Shades of Marketing, I'd say half that book was written on, not half, but maybe like 25, a quarter of it was written on the phone because I got some kind of inspiration, some kind of idea. I was like, oh, I should talk about this topic in the book.
Hmm.
And I was able to then expand on it once I got in front of a computer.
I think that makes sense. Using your resources, cell phones are often on our person, so leverage the resources that you have. I'm curious to know, post publish, do you use your phone for various marketing methods as well? Do you manage any of your marketing processes and or campaigns from your phone as well on the go?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything now is mobile. So whether it's my email campaign, social media, I get in front of my laptop and that's how I start the campaigns, run them. But I'm constantly, which is a bad thing, but I'm constantly on my phone checking up on things, making sure things are going smoothly for sure. Whether it's for me or for my clients, that's how it works.
Once again, using your resources, I think taking everything in moderation with respect to the responsibilities we have, but using your resource, I can't always have my laptop with me, so the phone makes sense. So when it comes to marketing, how would an author approach getting their completed and published content in front of the right readers? Do you have any advice for them from what you've learned and from the books that you've written?
Yeah, well, my book 50, not 50, well, 50 Shades does cover this, but From Nobody to Best-Selling Author talks about the publishing process and getting
Mm,
in front of your audience. So let's say, for example, my book, 50 Shades on Marketing, it's a book on business, on marketing. Obviously, you want the categories that you select on Amazon, on the audiobook, the paperback, etc. You get to select the categories. So you want to make them relevant categories to your topic. Now you're targeting that audience, and Amazon's going to do a lot of the marketing for you. So keep that in mind. And the next thing is you want to target niche media. So I went on like marketing podcast. In fact, I go on a lot of marketing pod. I would say once every couple of months I go on some kind of marketing podcast
mm.
to promote the book, to talk about topics from the book. So that helps promote the book. I come on podcasts like yours, etc. So that certainly, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but those are my top two or three tips on getting in front of the right audience so you can promote your book for sure. And then during like holidays, like Black Friday is coming up, I'll promote the, like, this is a part of a Black Friday special where I'm just giving away the book for free. And there is value in giving away a digital copy of your book for free. There's absolute value because what's going to happen, the person's going to get the book, they're going to read it, they're going to write a good review on Amazon. Reviews are a big deal. You want to get
Hmm.
your Amazon reviews up as much as you can.
That that is a constant struggle for many authors, is trying to get those reviews. And I think a lot of people despair when there shouldn't be any despair involved, because like you said, giving away free books, being generous with that isn't technically, like, are you technically losing the money out on that? Yes. But at the same time, you're gaining readership, you're finding the right readers, you're getting those reviews. And even if it's, someone mentioned, I listened to Joanna Penn's podcast, The Creative Pen, and she had a guest recently that they said that they expect roughly 10% of the free books they actually give to yield some type of review or reader. And for them, that's worth it. The more generous they are, they're finding those readers, and to not be afraid to be generous. So I like the point that you made. You're definitely not losing out on giving the ebooks free. Hopefully you're finding the right readers and getting feedback from them. Which is perfect. So have you found that it's been challenging for you to find the right audience? Or have, after doing your research and joining podcasts, are you often able to find the right categories and the right readers relatively easily?
It's pretty easy. I mean, it does take, you have to put in about half hour of your time. So that's for sure. I mean, it's not an easy, quick thing, but you're gonna have to put in about an
Sure.
half an hour, look at all the different categories, look at all the everything that Amazon has to offer and pick what you think is best.
And then obviously you can change that as well if you find later along the line that things may not be working, because your ads are pretty telling. They'll let you know if the clickers are actually following through and buying, and if not, then maybe try targeting something else. About how much time do you spend per week working with your ads?
So I actually don't advertise my book anymore, any
Oh,
of my
okay, sure.
books. Um, I do once a while, maybe. So there's Amazon has a program called KDP Select, which I'm
Mhm.
sure you're familiar with. So my books are on KDP Select, and I'll run some campaigns maybe once a year or once every 6 months. I'll run, free book campaigns, free giveaways, 99-cent campaigns, discounted campaigns. That's what I'll run, and Amazon basically runs those. I just manage them. But outside of that, I don't go out of my way because there are all these other marketing strategies that I use to promote the book, getting the reviews, what I brought up earlier, going on podcasts like this, the search engine optimization, my website, etc.
Do you manage your own website, or do you pay someone to help you with that?
I manage my own website.
Okay. That's the one thing that I think a lot of authors feel a little bit overwhelmed with, all the various things that they need to manage, and potentially podcast episodes and ads. If you could indicate, like, for you, priorities for someone who is starting from the ground up? They've just published their first book. For you, what would be the top 3 priorities for them to manage to get started with their marketing?
So this, we're going to make the assumption that they've already written and published the book. So the
Yes.
book is
Yep.
out there, it's on
Mhm.
Amazon. The first thing is make sure that it's available in all formats. It's in paperback, it's in Kindle, it's an audiobook. If it's long enough, you should make it in hardback. So you want to have it in all different type. It can only help you to
Mhm.
be on different formats. It can't hurt you at all. That's more distribution, more publicity. People like reading in different ways. So that's number one. Number two is you want to, I think, uh, run these marketing campaigns through KDP Select. So just go into your dashboard at KDP, just Google that, or wherever your book is published, go into your dashboard and run the free campaigns or the 99-cent campaigns. I think that's crucial. That's important. The third thing I would say is getting yourself out, getting reviews. So yes, go to your family, go to your friends, offer them free copies of the book and say, can you please write me a review? Because reviews absolutely go a long way. So those would be my top 3 tips.
And I think that's a great place for people who may feel overwhelmed with all that. There's lots of different resources. There's things like Free Booksy, Fussy Library, and all of these other websites, that Book Barbarian, that you can use for marketing. But getting started with the basics, feeling comfortable with that, and then building upon it is only going to help you, particularly if you have a lot of other things going on in life, and you have to take it little by little. Are there any common pitfalls that you found with marketing? Maybe things that people spend too much time on that's actually a waste of their time, or mistakes maybe that you've learned from?
Yeah, I think the advertising, advertising in newspapers and magazines, I just don't think that works anymore. It's not very direct. I have clients who are like, oh, I want to run this full page ad in this magazine. And it's not direct because people can't click the book and purchase it immediately. They're gonna have to remember the title of the book or take a picture of it, and it's too much work. So I'd say stay away from that. I'd say stay away from these paid media publicity. I mean, these publicists who charge $5,000, $10,000 and claim that they're going to sell a lot of copies of your book. I think you can do it yourself. Um, if you're too lazy, or if you don't know how to do it yourself, find a lower cost publicist. I just see too many publicists ripping off their clients and charging so much money. There are some cheaper alternatives out there, like us at Krish Media and Marketing, who can get you the publicity that you deserve for just a super low price. I mean, we're talking a fraction of what these large publicists would charge.
But we live in a digital age, like you said, and recognizing that and using it to your advantages is going to be the best thing that anybody can do. I've heard of some authors that use QR codes at the backs of their books for leaving reviews, purchasing the next books, various links in ebooks, just recognizing that it's convenience. If people are reading your book, they're more likely to purchase or move on to the next thing if you make it as easy as possible. Yeah, I remember learning about marketing with my MBA years ago, and yeah, newspaper ads and magazine ads were still not at the height, at the peak, but they were still mentioned, and I thought, this is moving out. I don't think this is going to be relevant in 3 to 5 years, and it's not as much now. Is there a place for it? Perhaps if you're going for a specific demographic, maybe, but many of us are kind of spanning demographics. We're trying to hit a larger audience of age and walks of life and whatnot. So that's really good advice to think about that from a digital perspective. So, do you have any other thoughts or advice for people who want to get started, get moving, get rolling on their marketing? Maybe they have tried little things, they've backed off. Any other star advice that you can give them?
Well, definitely take social media seriously. And when I say
Okay,
seriously, I mean you want to have a presence.
sure.
A lot of authors just they have no Twitter, they have no Facebook. You can't find them anywhere. You want to have a presence. You want to, yeah, I'm not saying post every hour, every 2 hours, or even every 2 weeks, but you want to have some type of presence where your fans can follow you, where they can contact you, and you want to push out content relevant to your book
Mm.
from time to time because people will be paying attention. So that's the first thing. We haven't talked about social media at all, but social media does hold value. It absolutely does.
So how would you recommend managing that social media? Because there are lots of platforms. For example, I believe I'm on all of them, but I'm only active on one or two for time reasons. Do you recommend kind of spreading out your presence among the various media apps or focusing on the ones that work for you?
You want to focus on the ones that are relevant today.
Sure.
So I
Okay.
don't expect you to get on MySpace today and to promote your book, right?
Sure.
You want to be on Facebook, you want to be on Twitter, you want to be on LinkedIn, you want to be on what's that other one? TikTok, you want to be on YouTube. You want to hit the big ones where there are actual followers, where there's actual traffic.
Sure.
So that's number one. Going back to your question on additional marketing strategies, make your book available for pre-order.
Mm.
So before you even publish it, you can make the Kindle and the paperback now available on pre-order. So even if it's just for 3 weeks or a month, you want to build a little bit of hype. You want to build up your book before you actually launch. And that's going to help your launch day sales because all those pre-order sales count as first day sales. So let's say
Mm.
you get 100 sales on pre-order. Well, on the first day, it's going to show up as 100 sales, and that's going to rise rankings. That's a big deal on Amazon. To be ranked on Amazon, like in the top five or even number one, if you have a number one bestseller medallion, that's a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really big deal because Amazon's then going to start marketing the book for you. It's like an algorithm that they have, like, oh, people like this book, let's promote it. Because remember, Amazon's getting a cut of the book as well.
Yes. So they're definitely invested in getting as many of your books sold, any books really sold as possible. If I've heard about the free marketing, I've heard a number of using quotations, other people, marketers talking about it. But yeah, it does pick up the algorithms. The search engine is recognizing what people are searching and what they're purchasing. And that I know that bestseller list definitely helps your sales grow organically on Amazon without too much intervention from you, although some intervention is still required. But I'm curious to know, have you delved? You mentioned TikTok. I'm curious to know if you're on TikTok as well, or if that's not so much your thing. Some people are hesitant to try that app.
I'm not on TikTok. I mean I'm on it, but I don't post anything. I just watch
Sure.
some videos here and there. I guess I'm getting old. That's the number one social media
Sure.
app right now.
Yep.
I'm still trying to understand it, but hey, that's where people are. And I tell my clients, I say, look, you got to get on TikTok. It's where a lot of business is being done now. So
It
I
is. Yeah.
personally am not on it, but we run TikToks for our clients. We encourage our clients to use TikTok to get on TikTok.
It's one of those things where I was hesitant to join myself until I started selling books. So there you go. I don't have a massive presence there, but it's one of those things where people are more willing to buy from that app and they can relate to your video. So it's a very strange place. I know not everybody feels comfortable with it, but having that presence anywhere, really, like you said, how can you sell books if people try to find you, they're Googling your name and finding no information about you. It kind of lose credibility as an author, even though maybe that's not what they're searching for. Just having a presence is important. So well, great. I appreciate you joining. We're running a little short on time. I'd love to ask you, where can people find more information about you and your services and your books?
Go if for my services, my company, Krish Media and Marketing, krishmediamarketing.com. That's KRISH mediamarketing.com. You can see everything there. Like I mentioned, I'd love to give your audience both of those books or three. Nobody to best-selling author, 50 Shades of Marketing and Podcastnomics. I'd love to give away those three books free of charge. So just contact me either through krishmediamarketing.com or visit nareshvissa.com. Contact me through there and I will give you free copies of those books, and check out all my books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just go to Amazon. They're all there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Naresh. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Dan. It was great.